Okay, I had an idea for something to do for fun. Anything I do is for fun. And I always try to enjoy everything I do. And some time ago, I started doing like these Madden Sims and just watching the game and playing GM mode. And I was having a blast. So I thought I would start streaming them and go over everything. And I don't even know how fucking little people watch, but it was fun to me. And I got to thinking, like I need more people to speak about Carolina Panthers. I don't live in North Carolina, but there aren't a lot of podcasts out there. They all have their kind of cliques, if you will. Um, and some of them are pretty damn good. Some people actually have really good opinions. I respect them a lot more than the quote unquote experts. And I got to think, okay, maybe I'll start doing this for fun, where I'm kind of doing like couch GM for the Carolina Panthers, talking about it, and then maybe opening it up to people later on if people want to join. Um, but something about me, real quick, is I kind of just wing shit. I just do it because I'm a perfectionist, and if I don't just start, I want everything to be perfect. I want everything to be set up. So I'm just starting. I'm winging it. I don't give a fuck. I don't do this for clout. I don't do it for clicks. Um, I don't want to have like respect on my name for being a Carolina Panthers fan. I just want to talk, and you know, hopefully some people want to listen, and then hopefully they can join in. Maybe in time, maybe I'll set up like a phone call voicemail thing. I could play it on there. Um, maybe for now, just comments on YouTube. I was thinking about setting up an email address, a Twitter account, you know, the whole shebang, whatever. I don't know. But the kind of topics I want to go over is, okay, like the roster, kind of like what I did in my Madden GM mode simming, where I kind of went over like the state of the roster and what I was looking for in the draft and where I wanted to improve. But, maybe if others wanted to join in later on, in time, maybe we could have like a nice little group of people, whether they're content creators, I could kind of highlight their calls or comments or opinions, um, you know, and we'll see how often I do it. Maybe once every week. I kind of I want it to be interesting and I want it to be insightful. So, the topics would basically go over like, who would you resign, who would I resign, when it comes to players who aren't under contract, who would we cut, whose stock is rising and falling week after week or however often I do these videos. And then what college players do you know, or I'm going to bring up ones that, are on pff.com or something, or throughout the season, what players that I have noticed. Who should we keep an eye on as Panthers fans? But real quick, just to, I guess, speak about my credibility as a Panthers fan, real quick. Uh, I'm probably the first, one of the very, 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 very first Panthers fans in existence. No joke. Not an exaggeration. Definitely one of the first that was on the West Coast. Quick story. I was working graveyard shift. I had just turned 16 years old. Yes, I moved out, at a very young age, and I was working graveyard shift. So I was working for the newspaper, and it just so happens that right around my birthday, before my 16th birthday, at like October 27th, wee hours of the morning, I opened the sports section, and there I see that the Carolina Panthers were getting a football team, or North Carolina was getting a football team. Um, although I was a West Coast guy, I grew up, liking baseball, basketball, football. Um, but then over the years, I kind of just became like mostly a football fan. I loved hockey. I played hockey, played some football in high school, but hockey went a little bit further in. But I don't have, it was hard to get like a passionate about any other teams. But as a teenager, as I grew up, I really enjoyed rooting for Carolina teams because that's where I was born in North Carolina. So I would root for the local teams and then the Carolina college teams. And I was a huge Rams fan. And right around my 16th birthday there, I heard that the Carolinas were getting a team and they were going to be called the Panthers, which was like my ultimate favorite animal growing up. Like even as a little kid with the little freaking Panthers toys that my mom gave me, and I was learning about zoo animals and all that crap. Like it was just always that was my animal forever. So it just kind of felt like it just fit. Carolina Panthers. I was going to be a fan, and I didn't know what to do when it came to the Rams because I was a fan of them too, and I decided that I was just going to root for them both equally. They were in the same division, NFC West, and before they started playing, I think it was the off season before the 1995 season. The owner, Georgia Frontiere, moved him to St. Louis, and I said, "All right, that makes my decision for me. I'm strictly a Carolina Panthers fan." But some of my first trips after I got my license, was going to the mall on the West Coast looking for Panthers gear. So the credibility I'm talking about is I've been following this team since day one. I've watched easily over 95% of every freaking snap since I got Sunday Ticket, probably in like 98. It was either, so it wouldn't have been 96. So it was either 97 or maybe 98. I mean, it couldn't have been past 99, but somewhere around there, I started getting Sunday Ticket, and I've gotten it every year since. If I wasn't in town, I used to record the games. Now I just watch them. Um, I don't really travel that much anymore. But, anyways, that's my credibility as a fan. I don't like. I study some film when things get interesting, especially when I feel like we need a quarterback. I go and I start studying college quarterbacks. There's very few things I want to pat myself on the back on, but I think assessing quarterbacks, I'm pretty decent at it. Um, this is cringy, but I don't give a shit. I I've I tried to warn people about Jimmy Clausen, players like Zach Wilson. Um, Now there's just a crap load of quarterbacks that I thought were overhyped, and sure enough, they never worked out. I got a little bit tired of always just picking players that I thought were just going to suck. So in recent more years, I started to study a little bit more, and I could have told you that Jaden Daniel was going to be better than Caleb Williams. I could have told you that Drake May was going to be better than Caleb Williams. I mean, he's taking off right now. He looks so comfortable. I could have told you that Bryce. I did try to tell you that Bryce Young was going to struggle. Um, of all the players I've made predictions on, though, and had really gut feelings on, Bryce Young has been the one at the end of last year who kind of started to make me look stupid, and because I never thought he had it in him. I just didn't. So, um, I don't know why did I go into quarterbacks? So yeah, studying film. I don't really like. I'm not gonna pretend that I know everything about all the college players, all the college teams. Like different positions. I think I'm better at just kind of assessing quarterbacks and who I think will transition to the NFL. There's so many aspects, but I'm not. I'm speaking as a fan, not necessarily as like a draft expert, but maybe I'm like an expert football Carolina Panthers fan. Anyway, let me get into this. If I forgot anything I wanted to bring up, I'll kind of just rant and rave. So I created this. Sorry, nothing fancy. I don't edit shit. This ain't a high production. Again, this is just for fun. Um, Maybe it's just me getting my voice out, but here's our roster right now. 53. I put in some practice squad players there as well. Some guys that are on injured reserve. I made sure they were on the list, and I went ahead and color coded them a little bit to where if they're blue, they're under contract or rookie contract, and cutting them would not save us any money. Um, if they're like orange, like this Damian Lewis, Austin Corbett, Tommy Tremble, so orange means that they're under contract for next year, but cutting them would save us some cap space. Um, then we got all the free agents, so any red boxes, free agents, um, we have to look to resign. Now I did kind of change the font here to where if it's green, like Jaden Coker, Bryson Tremaine, Cade Mays, Christian Roseboom, Sam Martin, that's just my opinion of. I think we should go ahead and probably re-sign them. Purple, Hunter Renfro, Brady Christensen, like Jaden Crumedy, like that. Me personally, I probably would. Now I don't know what Jaden Crumedy is like in the locker room. There's a lot of things that go into this. I'm sure we all know. Um, there's a lot of things that fans just don't know. But I would say that if it were me, I would look to re-sign Brady Christensen, Jaden Crumedy, and Damani Richardson. Those in red, you know, or in black, I guess don't really care. I probably wouldn't re-sign him. Like I would re-sign Rico Dowdle if he wants to play, but my thinking is we're probably not going to want to at least allocate that much cap space towards the running back position when we have Chuba Hubbard under contract, Trevor Etienne, Jonathan Brooks should be coming back. Now, of course, some of these things go out the window if let's say the real GM and coach know that let's say there's a problem person there. Like for all we know, Jonathan Brooks is just got issues. I have no idea. I'm gonna assume there are no issues. But what that tells me is that Rico Dowdle is probably not looking to be on the team next year unless somehow both sides want to make it happen. Um, with that said, like if what I envision for this, if there were people watching or joining in on the conversation at a later date, just know that like I'm an old fogey. I speak my mind. I talk to everyone like they're my brother. Um, so it can come off abrasive. If someone says dumb shit, I'm gonna say that's fucking dumb. Like I was saying, there's a lot of fans who know a lot of good stuff, but there's also a lot of freaking weird ass takes. Some of the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Some of the guys that I find to be very knowledgeable have said some pretty dumb shit. Just in the past week, I was watching a podcast and I normally think they know what they're talking about, and they were talking about potentially trading Chuba Hubbard before the trade deadline, trading for a receiver when we don't need one, and how Jonathan Brooks was a beast. That is fucking dumb. Sorry, bro. Jonathan Brooks has less than 10 carries in his NFL career. We don't know what he is. We do not need another receiver right now, especially if it means trading away draft capital. And Chuba Hubbard would be a huge cap hit if he were to be traded away. Um, Not only that, were they even considering like what it would mean when you just re-sign a player who basically, for all intents and purposes, was the guy in the locker room that has done everything and approaches everything the way you want, just to trade him? I, okay, if you want to say that Rico Dowdle is a better player, that's a different conversation. But don't be talking about trading him before the trade deadline. It just doesn't make sense or financial sense. Okay, sorry. The ones in like kind of this pastel orange right here, Robert Hunt, Taylor Moton, they would save cap space if they were to be cut after June 1st. So, and then we're gonna talk about the pink elephant in the room probably later. But this is kind of how I laid it out. And in looking at this, I kind of set up, like what positions I would look towards in the draft and or free agency. And to kind of go on a little sidetrack here, there's going to be people who talk about best player available. You got to go BPA. I mean, I'm just stubborn on this. I'll die on this hill. It's mostly a myth. I don't care what anyone fucking says. It's mostly a myth. There's a reason why teams usually pick along with how everyone thought they would pick, especially early in the draft. Um, Now, granted, of course, there's exceptions, and I think that when at least as a couch GM, if I'm looking at the roster, there's always going to be an exception to where you have like just what you think might be an outstanding talent, an outstanding player, and maybe, let's say we don't need in my opinion, we don't need another receiver. But if someone's there that falls to us, those are going to be the exceptions, in my opinion, where you take what you think is the best player available. But don't butcher me too much on this whole, me thinking it's a myth. I do. I don't want to like explain it further and take too much time, but I'm not saying they don't follow it. I'm just saying that like when they say, when teams say we're going with the best player for our team that helps make us better, and the best player available, it's kind of like with an asterisk of who we can get on the field and who fits our locker room, and you know the kind of player we're looking for, and there's just so much to it. So anyway, back to this. If I'm looking at this roster and the road to 53 for next year, there's not a lot of, I guess you could say, openings. Let's go one by one. So T Mac, you're going to have Jalen Cooker, XL, Jimmy Horn Jr., Bryson Tremaine. Again, I would, of course, I have a feeling they're going to resign Bryson and Jalen Coker. Um, I would hope Cade Mays as well. I mean, they would have to be pretty freaking dumb to go into next year letting Cade Mays go and thinking Austin Corbett's going to do something for you. That would just be utter insanity. I have to think that they have the common sense. But okay, I can't imagine like drafting a receiver and them being able to start. Like unless they just really want to kind of, because you have to remember, even if you draft or sign a receiver who starts, opposite T Mac, you're pushing everyone with potential talent for the future down the depth chart. I wouldn't do it. I would develop these guys. I would, if they want to re-sign David Moore again and have Hunter, I would, dude. I think Hunter Renfro is going to be on the. He's just going to keep going up. That's just my feeling. I think he's just one of those guys that I would hate to let him go. I think he's got a huge, huge upside, and I think as a veteran he can teach some of these guys some things. But I don't think right now you could draft a left tackle and say, you're going to start over Icky, unless your plan was to move Icky inside. So that's an option. Um, Again, I would just resign Cade Mays. I don't even want to discuss the possibilities of possibly replacing him. If that were to happen down the road, then we'll talk about it. But if I'm couch GM, he's being re-signed. Uh, Robert Hunt is under contract. Here's what I would do with the offensive line. I would just keep it as is with Icky, Damian Lewis, Cade Mays, Robert Hunt, Taylor Moton. And then, you're going to have Chandler Zavala, who's still under rookie contract, unless there's something that we don't know. I'm not saying that he's a great talent, but he is obviously played better than his rookie year. I would, do my best to re-sign Brady Christensen, um, and then probably draft a couple guys. Keep all the starters, re-sign Christensen, and draft a couple guys for depth and or to challenge, let's say, a Taylor Moton. Because he's someone to me who's been on the decline this year. He's looked pretty foolish more times than I think I've ever seen him look foolish. So I'll get into the draft of the year, but that's someone who I would, unfortunately, dude. Like I think even though I would keep him on the team next year, I would bring someone to challenge that position, challenge Icky, um, challenge anyone. Like any of these guys. Bring in a guy who could play guard, tackle, left or right side, and challenge him. Bring in a couple guys. Maybe someone early and then someone mid or late round. Maybe let Josh Nyman go and sign someone else in free agency. I don't know, but I still wouldn't say that someone's ready to take Taylor Moton's spot right now, if that makes sense. Same thing with tight end. I would love a freaking tight end. I would love a difference maker at tight end. I wanted Tyler Warren. I still, I don't know. T Mac's been okay, but I still feel like Tyler Warren would have been the better pick in my opinion. But hey, I guess time will tell. I'm not down on T Mac. I think he's done well. But it's just so hard to say let's get an elite tight end if he were to fall to us in the draft, for example, first round, when you have Jatavian Sanders and Mitchell Evans and Tommy Tremble is under contract. But I guess that could be a possibility of maybe, but that's just, I don't know. I just think that Mitchell Evans is going to progress. I think Jatavian Sanders is going to progress, at least become more of a veteran. So I think, fingers crossed, we don't really need a tight end. We may not have an elite one, but between the two, we can have reliability there. I don't even talk to me about running backs, drafting a freaking running back. Like, it ain't going to happen. There is not a Cam Scatabo in this draft, and I only mention him because to me, he's just so exciting to watch. There might be some guys that are really exciting to watch, but when you have Chuba Hubbard under contract, Trevor Etienne, Jonathan Brooks supposedly like going to be coming, should be playing next year. If not, there's a huge problem. And even with all that said, I would use the draft if you were going to use a draft pick on one, get another offensive lineman, settle that, and just hand the ball off to freaking whoever. Good offensive lines make great running backs. I'm so tired of getting running backs early in the draft. Okay, we're gonna skip the pink elephant in the room for right now. Um, could someone start on defense? Let's see. Maybe a nose tackle. It's hard to imagine drafting some guy and starting over Princely or Nick. Um, but I can see drafting and rotating with those guys. Yes, I could see someone starting at inside linebacker, and I just at safety Nick Scott. I think Ransom's going to be taken over between Demani Richardson, Trayvon Merrick, and Lathan Ransom. I think you know the, one of those guys, in my opinion. I don't think there's really need to draft someone to start there. If you want to draft someone or sign someone to challenge, then sure. But there's not a lot of, in my opinion, there's potential. Of course, this can all go out the window. Knock on wood. The rest of the season could just be utter garbage. But this is why I came up with. If you look over your, I'm thinking. I kind of just color coded. This was just for me. I went with green as early. So I separate. I'm thinking offensive tackle, inside linebacker, And then when I look at like what we have versus who I think we should resign, I'm thinking inside linebacker would be a higher priority. Then it probably offensive tackle slash offensive guard, someone who can, move inside, maybe do both. Um, Hopefully some flexibility there. Outside linebacker for edge rusher. We don't know what we're going to do when it comes to players like Patrick Jones and DJ Wanham. Then maybe some more offensive guard depth. Someone who can maybe play backup center if need be. Cornerback, I'm thinking. I started this season thinking, man, we're really going to need to really address that, but they seem to be doing pretty well with people like Corey Thornton, Shao Smith Wade. Um, and a little side note, all this could basically be changed up if we change if we hire a different defensive coordinator, and especially if we change schemes. But I'm under the impression I'm moving forward as if we're at least going to keep the 3-4. Not a lot of fans like it. I I never liked it. I didn't even like it when we ran it with Dom Capers back in the late 90s. Sorry, mid to late 90s, But I could make an argument that, and no one may like it, but I think if when done well, and you have um, transformational players, they don't have to be elite, top dollar Micah Parsons. You have players that fit. Like think of like the New England Patriots when they had no name guys. Pittsburgh Steelers get like guys that fit. Of course, they get like high dollar guys drafted high sometimes too. But I'm moving forward thinking we're gonna keep the 3-4 for the most part. It's kind of like our base, even though we're playing nickel a lot and bring in big nickels and whatnot. But I wouldn't mind getting a cornerback late, a defensive end. That it kind of depends on if we are trying to create cap space for whatever reason. Right now, I think we have $16 million in cap space. We're probably saving it to help re-sign some players next year or go after some free agents, like someone like Bobby Brown the third. So let me talk about this nose tackle position, and then I'll kind of break down. Again, I'm winging it. It's all disorganized. It was clearer in my head, but I'm jumping around. But this nose. Let me talk about this. Why I have nose tackle in here. I was under the impression that Bobby Brown the third was going to be playing nose tackle. Now I admit I watch almost every snap, but I haven't been fully paying attention at who's lining up where. Mostly because I'm like cursing and sending angry tweets about our offense lately. But this is what the depth chart has, both on the website and ourlads.com. Bobby Brown has been a backup at defensive end. I thought he was going to be playing more nose. I knew coming into this offseason, my prediction was we were going to focus on signing an outside linebacker, a safety, and a nose tackle. And then I was vouching to draft another nose tackle in the draft. What'd we do? Signed Patrick Jones, Trayvon Merrig, and Bobby Brown III. It just made sense. I didn't have a crystal ball. It just seems that like maybe Dan Morgan thinks, or maybe it's just obvious to me. I don't know. Maybe it's older age. It just kind of it seemed to make sense to me. And then we drafted. Did I mention we drafted Cam Jackson? So I'm I'm a little like I guess dumbfounded or confused at what Giro Vero does. Because if it were me, I don't know. Like I try to come up with understanding of, okay, what is he doing? Is he creating like putting some stronger, bigger guys at defensive end, thinking that they may get some one-on-ones and really pinch the inside there? I don't know. I'm not an NFL coach, but hey, it seems to have been working. It just sucks when it doesn't. So I guess just on paper, as a fan, I wouldn't mind using a late draft pick. I wouldn't really maybe sign someone, but like it kind of depends on Cam Jackson's development, whether or not you want to let Ashawn Robinson go and create some cap space. But um, I don't know. I call them 300 fatty pound nose tackles. I just want a big guy in there who you can't move, and I don't mind like using like a late round draft pick to do it because they're strong, they're big. To me, like they're not world beaters and huge difference makers. The difference that they make is kind of like an offensive guard type that they don't really show up on the stat sheet, but they help everyone else out. All right, how should I go? So that kind of breaks down the whole like how I found the list of priorities for the draft and or free agency, where I think we need to improve. You gotta remember, man. Like it's about how you're gonna get to 53 players. That's how I think of it. Um, so I wouldn't, aside from re-signing Bryson and Jalen Coker, I wouldn't touch the receivers. I wouldn't. I just don't see a need. Sure, Excel has some drops. He still needs to grow, but you have Bryson, Coker, Horn. Like all these guys are challenging him right now. So I'm not uncomfortable with this. It's a little on the young side, but I don't like unless there was just some generational. And when I say like I mean generational. I'm not just saying just some guy who runs fast as like another XL. I mean like unless there's just a beast, I wouldn't I wouldn't do it. I talked a little bit about like I would potentially be looking early at an offensive tackle, not necessarily an offensive guard, a tackle who could move inside to when needed, or to challenge and put our best five out there. Um, so I think for me, offense is kind of looking, just get some depth on O line to develop for the future. Maybe challenge Taylor Moton to take a starting spot should he be struggling. Um, or maybe if you get a couple guys, you could realize, okay, well, hey, this guy, let's say John Doe is performing just as well as Damian Lewis, and cutting Damian Lewis could save us some cap space. Maybe that's a move. This isn't a knock on Damian Lewis. I'm just looking at it as a couch GM. Defense. Let me see anything that comes to mind. I would keep Bobby Brown for the most part. Anyone in orange, I would try to keep, unless there's just some big move we're looking to make and need the cap space. I don't. I don't. Where would we want a big move at? Maybe if there was a insane edge rusher in free agency, or let a Mike Jackson go and sign like a really good cornerback. I don't know in the NFL world whose contracts are coming up next year. Um, so yeah, I'm just thinking like where this just looks to me as a team that is in development mode and has the pieces in place for the most part. Again, knock on wood, that could go all go out the window if if basically we see what we saw against the Patriots the rest of the year. So if we see what we've seen against the Dolphins, against the Falcons, then I think for the we're on the up. Things are looking good. Let's talk about okay, outside linebackers. You basically only have four guys, at least on the 53 or anyone worth mentioning. This, I don't know Incoom that well. I don't even honestly like I don't even know who he is, man. Um, Yeah, so maybe my credentials aren't that great. But we have Princey Nick. They're the future there. We're hoping they're the future there. Here's what I would do as a couch GM. I would probably create a spot by letting one of these guys go, Wanham or Jones, and bring in another talent, young talent, early in the draft. And you could cut them after June 1st, so you could wait until you see who if someone falls to you in the draft. Now, if someone great falls to you in the first round, and this is hold on, let me. This is why I have them kind of mid. We would like a star guy there, but my hope is that like what is that star guy going to do? Is he going to be better than Princely or Nick in their second year? My hope would be no. My hope would be like maybe just as good. Um, my no worst case scenario would be just as good. So things could change. Knock on wood. What if one of them gets injured with a year-long injury towards the end of this year? Then that changes. That mindset changes a little bit. But just on paper, right now, sitting on the couch, I would think, why not bring someone in second or third round, similar to both Nick and Princely, and wait to see what you got, and maybe get rid of like a Patrick Jones or DJ Wanham, create some cap space, and that opens up a roster spot for him. That's kind of how I would. The couch is very comfy. That's what I'm thinking. All right, inside linebacker. Um, we really only have two guys right now. Okay, Ben Martin Scott or whoever this guy is, maybe they turn out to be great. Claude Sherless, okay, I've got nothing. I've got nothing really great to say about him, but I'm not going to knock him because I haven't studied his film. I've seen the games, but I guess if I had to say something about him, would be maybe he's just a guy that fills a roster spot, and we've seen what he can do. He's never going to be someone who ends up improving to the like someone like Frankie Louvu as an example. So Roseboom will be I looked it up. I know I can even show you here. Where's Roseboom? He's not under contract next year. So I would resign him, and I would look at bringing someone, early in the draft or maybe another free agent to kind of challenge and hit that rotation. Now, things were looking okay. If you go back, rewind a year, what was that guy's name? Crap, I'm already forgetting what he was named. Though. Number 47, our starting inside linebacker, came for the Broncos. Um, Josie Jewell looked like crap and then came on later. I'm seeing the same trend this year to where Roseboom and Wallace just kind of seem like out of position, late, slow, reacting, not being proactive. But I've seen signs to make me believe, at least over maybe it's just a fluke one game thing or the Falcons game as well. But I'm wondering if things are coming together for them right now. But even with this, even if they end up being great or good, and Roseboom gets re-signed, I would still bring in another guy. I think we need to challenge that position. I don't have a lot of faith right now that we enough to where we should pass on someone is what I'm saying. I like Mike Jackson. I think honestly, then there's probably some fans could probably tell me where I'm wrong, but I struggle to think of a better second cornerback we've had in a very very long time. He has made mistakes, but not nearly as many as someone like Jackson was. I'm forgetting it, Dante Jackson. But I think he's underpaid. I think we got a deal for him. If he wants to stick around, I would resign him. But that's why I would also keep bringing. They're doing something right, in my opinion, at least to be better than serviceable by bringing in guys like Corey Thornton. You know, Mike Jackson was one of those. Shausmith Wade was a late draft pick. Maybe Caleb Evans could be someone like that. Maybe there's more on the practice squad of players that I don't really know right now. But that could always have potential of, like, if someone falls to us early, then maybe okay, let's pull the trigger. But I'm just not that worried about it as compared to, like, let's say offensive line or inside linebacker or an extra edge rusher, because we can all agree getting pressure on the quarterback is not something we're doing well by any means right now. I think it's more of a scheme. I think it's more of the coaching. I think it's more of like what they actually want our guys to do. Um, but maybe we need someone to help do it better than or at least have an upside to in time do it better at edge rusher. But I would probably at cornerback, I would probably try to keep these guys for next year and just bring in someone else. Um, yeah, safety. I'm visioning Merrig and Ransom starting. So, and I'm feeling decent about that. Bring in someone like another Damani Richardson or someone to challenge to be a backup. All right, that's kind of what my thought process is. We talked about linebacker, offensive line, corner, defensive end. If I didn't really touch on this too much, I would personally re-sign Jaden Crumedy. I don't know, like LeBron Ray for some reason. I, I'm just basing this off of Jaden's college tape. There's something about him that I like, but I haven't really seen that, and I admit I haven't really seen it in the NFL. But he was injured most of last year. But and I haven't seen it with LeBron Ray either. Maybe they're doing things that only like a great football minds can see, but I wouldn't mind bringing in like a late round guy to challenge to be backup and maybe develop for the future to when Wharton or Brown are gone. Well, Bobby Brown, not Derek Brown, are gone in the future. Um, yeah. All right. Before I kind of get into like what college players there are, I talked about who would resign, what players would I cut. Who would I cut? I would cut Corbett. Mm, I would cut Dalton, Corbett, Dalton, and I think the rest kind of depend on what we can get in free agency or the draft. Yeah, that's what I would do. That's just me right now. Um, the night before the Cowboys game. Rising and falling. I talked about rising. I think the inside backers looking better, and to me, Moten is falling. All right, so let's just cut the crap. Let's get to the pink elephant in the room. Bryce Young. Um, I'm go. I think we've seen. I think we could say we've seen it. Now he can still surprise us. I think we've seen what we're going to see from Bryce Young. I think this is who he is. I think we're going to see some games where he's flashy, and then I think for the most part he's going to be like a game manager, and I think our hope right now would be that he does not become someone who gets flustered easily and ruin his momentum and basically not really have it back until either the next week or when the game's out of reach and the defense is playing prevent and doesn't really care what happens, and then his fans end up you know praising how he completed some third down throws late in the game. I think we've seen who he is. I think that's who he's going to be. I think it can be serviceable, like I said, if he gets rid of that his down days and becomes a true game manager. But I'm pretty confident that right now, I think if you put Hendon Hooker in there, I think he looks better. And no, I'm not. I'm not a volunteer fan. I've not been a Hendon Hooker fan. I think I think he would be better if he understands this offense. Period. End of discussion. Now, what I wouldn't have taken him in the first round when he came out. I definitely think he's got accuracy. He's got an arm. Um, my hopefully sitting on the bench, he understands how to read NFL defenses and go through his progressions. So that's me saying that under that assumption that like he doesn't have his head up his ass would be that's what I'm assuming. Um, but yeah, I think he could almost easily be better right now. So, but here's the thing: Bryce Young's rookie contract's his fourth year is next year. Here's what I would do if the season's lost. I would see what we have in Hendon Hooker towards the end of the year. Why not? See what you have. Um, give him an opportunity to play. Not it's not so much in like a well, let's see if we have what it if he takes to get finally get rid of Bryce Young. No, it's more of a mindset of let's see if we can bring him into this coming off season, or if we need to look at another quarterback in the draft or free agency to bring in because just trying to think of it all. Granted, okay, kind of what I was saying earlier, like there's going to be exceptions. If someone's there at quarterback at any point in time, unless you have a Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen type, Jaden Daniels, like who else? Like Drake May, who's these up and comers. Unless you have these surefire guys, I'm of the mindset that if someone is there who could be one of the top quarterbacks in the league, and you don't already have one or one that's on its way, you take them. And the only reason why you wouldn't is if you have a guy kind of on the cusp, and let's say you're in the second round, and some guy falls to you, and you're like, look, why this guy could be this guy. We like him a lot, but like we're still developing Bryce, for example. But I think when in our situation, in the Panthers situation, going into Bryce's fourth year, I think you take the kid. And if anything, maybe doing it mid to late rounds, you could justify a little bit more. If you bring some guy in, just looking at it through the team's perspective, if someone falls you in the first round that you think you have convict. Oh shit, I'm gonna use the conviction word. That's I would like it, but I think I think that's a little bit too much drama. You know, I don't know. I'm not saying it's not possible. I think I think if you're doing that in the first round, you have to basically be sure that this is your future guy. Second or third round, you can kind of justify it by saying to everyone, fans, front office, yourself, that you know, we had a first round grade on him, and he fell to us, and we're bringing him in to ultimately, strengthen that room and be a backup and available should something, heaven forbid, if anything happens to Bryce Young, to just strengthen that room overall. Or even justify by say, like we were looking to keep three quarterbacks on the roster this year, and you know felt, just you could justify it, and that's really what I would do personally. I would love a Lenora Sellers, even though, I'm just saying I would love him. I'm not saying I think he's going to transition the best. I think he needs to sit for a year, but that's another reason why maybe you bring a guy in, have him sit for Bryce's fourth year. I think Bryce needs to have that challenge, someone looking over his shoulder right now. And should he falter again, start slow again, we don't know what's going to happen the rest of the year. But should he basically disappoint us again, what if you have a young kid who can come in and looks better? Just saying. I think we could have that with Hendon Hooker right now, to be completely frank. Of course, I could be proven wrong, but I wouldn't be surprised in the least if Hendon Hooker would ever somehow get a shot. You know, we would see more. I don't know, crispness, if you will. That's just. I think we would see better quarterback play overall, and I think everyone's going to make mistakes. If we were to get a young kid, sure. All right. With that said, let's take a look at who we're looking at. So we got inside linebacker, offensive line, cornerback. I'm going to look at inside linebackers, edge guys, offensive line, and then I'm going to look at quarterback in the draft of who I, who I think. Actually, it's not even who I think. These are just going to be guys that are ranked high right now, at least according to PFF. Because I'm going to be honest. I don't really know a lot of these college players. I haven't been studying them. So all of this is based on. This is more of like a, hey, who are some of the quote unquote experts saying that maybe we want to keep an eye on? Two guys that were being talked about come out of Ohio State: Harvell Reese, Sonny Styles. They're both 6'4". This guy's 243 pounds. Sonny Styles, 6'5", 243 pounds. Now Sonny Styles was a safety. They moved him to linebacker. That much I know. Um, I would love a 6'4" beast at inside linebacker. But I'm kind of contemplating right now, like, what would I want more? Because if you can't have a guy who does it all, stuff the run, and be good in pass protection, just be all over the field, just have just has a heart that doesn't stop, is vicious in tackling, is a beast, then would I want more of a run stuffer or kind of more of a pass protector? And I'm thinking, I'm torn. One second I'm like, I kind of want more of a Sunny Styles type, and the other one I kind of want more of a run stuffer. So I think, how about this? Like, you can't really go wrong. Now, I've heard Anthony Hill is pretty good out of Texas. Um, Whit Weeks, I've heard in years prior, but he doesn't. Any games I happen to see, he doesn't really stand out too much to me. Harold Perkins is another one, but he's more of, like, I would say, a 4-3 outside line, like a weak side linebacker, just from a fan's perspective. I have heard that I think the reason why some are struggling to, I guess, evaluate him is because he's a little too small, and a lot of teams don't know what to do with him. So I'm going to say what you do with him. You draft him as a 4-3 weak side linebacker. Okay, done. Um, yeah, I'm looking for seeing if anyone kind of stands out that I can speak to. But if if you look kind of overall, like it looks like there's, five guys currently that are looking to be looking to, first two rounds. Deontay, who are these guys? So, but I think this will obviously all this will get straightened out later. I mean, if you would ask me two years ago, I think there was a lot of fanfare around a guy like Whit Weeks. But I just I wouldn't mind bringing someone in that could be a future potential Pro Bowler. All right, let's look at let's see here. Offensive tackle guys. Let's get rid of these linebacker guys. All right, we're looking at. I mean, there's probably going to be more to be honest. Right now, they have four ranked in the first round. Um, there's always guys that kind of just rocket up the draft board. Um, just for fanfare. I didn't know Ernest Green played tackle. Huh. All right. But yeah, so you got guys like Spencer Fano out of Utah, Dunker out of Iowa, Francis out of Miami, Caden Proctor. A lot of these guys are kind of like your prototypical tackle size. Caden Proctor is just a huge guy, 6'7", 366. Let's look at guards real quick. See if anyone stands out. I think a lot of these names are going to make more sense closer, or during the off season for sure. But sometimes I like to kind of see who's available. All right, let's look at edge guys. All right, so you're gonna have, your top tier guys right now. They're Ruben Bain, T.J. Parker. Um, I've heard this Cassius Howell guy could be, yeah, that's some, at least on paper. There's something about David Bailey that I've always personally liked as a 3-4 edge rusher. Uh, it's mostly that he's got size and speed. He came from Stanford, and I'd like to see more of him. So, take that for what it's worth. I just, I just say like, if I were to like, if someone were to give me film outside of these top guys, um, like these top five guys, I would probably be looking like I'd be looking forward to looking at David Bailey some more. Something about him. I want to learn more. All right. Who else? Who else were we? Not really. You know what I could do real quick? Let me go look at defensive tackles. God, I wish I had like. I wish it said like this guy's a 300 fatty pound nose tackle. Amari Washington. I knew that name sounded familiar. Damn it! I wish they had their weights right. Like I'm looking for, like I want like 350 pounds. I just want. Who's this guy? 6'3", 330. I like short 300 fatty pound guys. This guy's just like a standard, yeah, standard defensive tackle size. I know it's not all about size, but Corleone family, like this. If this guy gets rated pretty high as like a nose tackle, again, I don't really know him, haven't really seen him, but that's like to me like a really good, at least size for a nose tackle in my opinion. It'd be nice if he added some weight though. I don't know why. I just maybe I'm just a size queen. I just like I just like yeah. I just like short, stubby, big, just 300 fatty pound nose tackles. All right. Now, we all know that, quarterback is what gets kind of people excited. Here's another reason why maybe this isn't the year. Even if like let's say if Fernando Mendoza or Dante Moore are in the draft and they fall to you, dude, like I don't think any of these top guys are seniors. Wait, is this guy Redshirt Junior? But you know what? He would come out if his agent's telling him he's going to be a top pick. Dante Moore, I think a lot of these guys, but there's no guarantee these guys are coming out. Redshirt Junior, John Mateer Junior. This guy's what, a redshirt sophomore, right? Yeah, no, junior actually. Shit. Nussmeyer, I think, is the first senior. Yeah, redshirt senior. So I think you got Nussmeyer, Beck, Klubnik. Now, I'm gonna. I have not studied a lot of these guys. My studying was based on last year, and so frustrated with the Bryce situation. Uh, I'm gonna tell you the guys who stand out to me, and I know there's gonna be haters, but it's not about what they do in college to me. It's about what I see them. Do I see them transitioning to the NFL and what I understand and what I've seen in my lifetime to transition well? And I've been saying it for over a year. Drew Allar, I think, is going to be a good NFL quarterback. I don't even think he needs to sit for very long. I think his right now, okay, this time last year I saw no negatives. None. Since then, I think the negatives that I've seen are in times of pressure. Like, I think in the playoff game last year, he threw an interception. Last week against Oregon, threw an interception. Now, I can also tell you that, you know, he just got injured today. And from what I hear, he's out for the rest of the year. Don't know if he's going to be coming back. He probably will be coming back to Penn State next year. He's a senior. I don't know the college rules anymore, but my understanding is that like yeah, he can go back to school next year. If I were him, I would come out. And I've changed my mindset on this. Also, if I'm a Lenora Sellers, I would come out. But I would do it if I thought that there's a chance I could sit for a year. I don't know. These guys might want to play right away. But if I'm an NFL team, I would have no issues with drafting a kid like Sellers and have him sit for a year. I personally think someone like that, and this is where my mind's changed a little bit, and you'll hear the experts say, well, they need more time in college. Well, I'm actually changing my mind on that. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say this. Someone like Lenora Sellers to me is going to get more sitting on the bench of an NFL system than he's going to playing in college in a system that I don't think is really going to help him evolve to be an NFL quarterback. If that makes, I don't know how else to word it to have it make more sense. I truly think he would be a better NFL quarterback in the long run if he comes out and sits for a year. So with that said, someone like Drew Allard, who I don't think really needs to sit, maybe because of his injury. Again, I don't know his injury right now. All I know is that he's out for the rest of the year. But I'm just saying if I'm him, I don't know if I really want to go to New York Jets with the first overall pick. I don't know if I want to go somewhere to where I've got to be the savior right away. Maybe I want to go somewhere who doesn't really need a quarterback to start this year, and my career would be longer and a lot more fruitful. That's what my mindset would be. But I don't know how these players are going to be thinking. Here's why, and I'm going to explain just for fun because apparently I like to hear myself speak. I'll tell you why I think these players can do it. And well, the Norris he's just like kind of a special talent. I want to see him do what I'm about to tell you that I think Drew Allard does well. You can't see it right now because I think he's in a very shitty offense with shitty play calling, and he doesn't have a lot of help, even in the run game right now. He does not have an elite target, and I think that for my assessment of that offense this year is you almost need an elite target because people are not getting open. I'm not, trying to make excuses for him. I'm saying I see him transitioning well. The only thing that's going to prove me wrong there is, you know, a year or two after he's drafted. Anyone could talk all the crap they want right now. I'm steadfast. I see him succeeding because he's accurate. Okay, he's accurate. There's a lot of crap to be a good NFL quarterback. You have to be accurate within the pocket. You have to be able to manage the pocket. Manage the game from the pocket is so much more important to me than, well, he's great off schedule. I don't give a shit if he's great off schedule. That's a nice plus, but you can't necessarily on a regular basis manufacture off schedule in the NFL. You just it just doesn't work, man. Okay, play action, roll out, you know, you know, rotate the pocket, just have them moving. Okay, yeah, you can manufacture that, but it always comes at a cost. So if you're rolling out to the quarterback's right, I mean, okay, you just cut the field almost in half. I just don't like it. To me, when I was hearing that from Bryce or they were talking about it with Caleb Williams, I'm like, this is dumb. Why would you value that over someone who can manage the game from the pocket? And then you just add more to it if they know how to maneuver in the pocket well. But first and foremost to me, can you manage the game from the pocket? And then, you know, you don't really see a lot of this in college, but are they playing in a scheme that I can see them going through their progressions with NFL style route trees? Because so many of these colleges and these quarterbacks look good when like it's a one read and chuck it because the receivers are good enough to beat the college defensive backs and be open. And that will happen in the NFL. But what happens more in the NFL is having to read the defense and make decisions as you go and then be accurate. And I've seen Drew Allard do all of that. that offense when they had open receivers. It's like that's kind of the problem is like they're running this system, but the receivers aren't getting open. So he's having to fit them in tighter windows. I'm going to tell you another player who did that well, who's currently on the Colts roster. And no, it's not who you think. It's Riley Leonard. I think Riley Leonard, I'm going to die on this hill, man. I think Riley Leonard is going to be a great quarterback, especially since he's sitting right now and he's watching Daniel Jones do it. I would go after a Riley Leonard if somehow he were to be just end up, like Hendon Hooker did. But that's just me. Right now, we can't really get him, and I don't think we should trade for him either. But that is someone who I would kind of be excited about. I think he can be one of those guys that kind of gets a start at some point in his career in the first maybe 2 years. Um, Maybe he goes in the next. Who's their back? Anthony Richardson's their backup right now. I don't. Hold on. Let me look that up. Let's look up Colts Colts depth chart. The thing with Riley Leonard though in college, he was running a lot. There was a lot of play calls where, yeah. See, Riley Leonard is the third string quarterback right now, but he's tall. He's got. He's athletic. He's got toughness to kind of lower that shoulder, get the first down. Which I'm not saying it's just kind of like icing on the cake a little bit. He's fast. He can move. Uh, anyway, we're talking about these guys. Um, all I'm saying about Riley Leonard is like when they had pass plays called that fit what I'm talking about with kind of like NFL route trees and passing schemes. I saw him go through his progressions, find the open receiver even though he wasn't wide open, and get it in there. Now Drew Allar, in my opinion, does it better, where Riley Leonard is more athletic. So, but I'm telling you, man, I don't know why people have been down on Drew Allar. Like before last year, I was I saw film on Drew Allar and I was amazed. Yet even PFF had him down. By the end of the year, he was up towards the top. And then what is it? The NFL Stock Exchange YouTube channel. The two guys, I forget their names right now, but they're cool guys. I like watching them. They're fun. They started basically talking about how if he was coming out, he'd probably be the first quarterback taken. So why is he all of a sudden down again? I don't know. I think he was right around here, down again on like you have him below fucking Klubnik and Beck. You shitting me right now? Like it's almost like they're trying to keep this kid like everything around him quiet until the end of the year. I don't know what it is. Okay, now I'm not saying that like I would pick him over these other guys. I haven't really I haven't I would take him over Klubnik, I would take him over Beck, I would take him over Levitt, I would take him over Nussmeyer, I would take him over Sellers. I would take what I've over but here's what I'm going to say from what I've seen of Mateer, yes, I would take him over Mateer. Haven't really seen Simpson. I've barely seen Dante Moore and not I have seen Fernando Mendoza but not enough to fully, you know, provide my or even have an opinion. But these are the guys that unfortunately we're not going to be able to see Drew Allen anymore. I don't think he's going to come out now. Maybe that's good for the Panthers because maybe if the Bryce Young project does not go well and he's at the end of his fourth year, whether we signed that fifth year option or not, which I think I'd have to sleep on it, but I think they're going to because you're still getting a starting quarterback for less than what you would if you had to re-sign him. Um, I think they're going to need another year to assess him, to be completely frank. Unless, Well, see, you have to make that decision. So even if he came out block like if he looked the rest of the year like he did at the end of last year, I don't know. He's just done so many things now that make me. I just don't feel. I'm always wondered. I'm always wondering when is the next Bryce thing gonna happen. It's becoming like a saying. Like it's becoming a meme. Bryce fumbled twice today. Bryce, overthrew receivers again. Bryce missed open receivers. Bryce got flustered and threw out of bounds on third and long, or fourth down. Sorry, whatever it was. Bryce could have checked it down, but waited too long, and then the pass was inaccurate. Bryce fumbled over his own feet. I'm not trying to rag on him, man. Like I still think there's a chance, but that's the thing. I lean more towards we've seen who he is and what he will be, and our best hope right now, realistically, is that the overwhelming Bryce version just is we see less and less over time. But I'm steadfast on I think our offense is limited because of his lack of physical abilities and traits. We've been saying it since he was drafted. Can he have moments where that doesn't affect him? Yes. But and Bryce lovers out there, if you're watching, like if anyone watches, like I get it, man. You want to love him. He's our quarterback. He's a good kid. He's had some rough deals when it came to receivers and offensive line help. Um, I get all that. I do. I'm not ignoring that by any means. But if you look at just his performance, right? You just put the blinders on, and when he does have opportunities, and when he does have time, and he does have receivers that are NFL open, not college open, there's just not enough there to feel warm and fuzzy about him by any stretch of the imagination. Saying otherwise is just silly. You can drink the hopium all you want, man, and I really do hope you're right. But the fact that people even still talk about this in his third year right now, when you have players like Drake May in his second year, really looking like, dude, the guy looks like he's understanding and he's getting it. Jaden Daniels his first year. Like I'm not saying he has to be them, and don't give me this crap about like, well, they have this player and that player. Dude, shut up, man. Like they were they were picking early in the draft again. So why is it that when we pick early, you think we have nobody and everyone's trash? Yet when they do it, it's like, well, they had great players. Like, dude, come on, man. Maybe it is coach. I don't think it's that. Eh. There are some shitty play calls, but I know that when he has an opportunity to make a play, or should make a play, or make the right decision, or manage it from the pocket, well, it's not all there, man. Let's just be real. And this is coming from a guy who did not want him. I admit that. But I love an underdog. And when I saw that kid after he got benched and he's just walking in the rain on the practice field by himself, I was like, dude, I want him to succeed and turn it around and prove everyone, all the naysayers wrong and just go nuts, man. Like, even if nuts is just managing the game and not making mistakes. Okay, a lot of people have Sam Levitt high. I don't get it, man. And I don't get Carson Beck, and I don't get this Cade Klubnik. I don't get this Nussmeyer shit. Um, just random thoughts right now. I think that when it comes to college and the NFL, and the fact that like the NFL become household names and Hall of Famers, and the quarterback is such a fantastic position that it sells tickets, it gets more viewers. There's more to talk about leading up to the draft. Like they overhype players. They do it in college. They do it leading up to the draft. It just, I think people get so over, like They just sink in it, man. They swim in it. But I think that's what we're seeing. If I just I don't know. I struggle to say like, do I think any of these top guys they have here would transition well, and I can't really say because I haven't really studied their film, man. And I honestly don't know if I'm going to. I don't. I would love. I think we need a quarterback on the Panthers. I love young quarterbacks too to develop and hopefully have them for 10, 15 years. Um, have a staple for the Carolina Panthers that for years to come we're like, nope, we've got one of the best in the league. I would love that. But I just don't think it's going to happen this year. Like even if like let's say Drew Eller never got injured and he was sitting there, I don't think the team's going to do it. I think it's more likely they'll take a guy in the second, third round who could be there as a chance to challenge and a chance to be better. But it's just like a second or third round pick, and when that comes to a quarterback, it's like big deal. You're not spending a lot of capital on it. Sure, you could use that pick for someone else, but we're talking about a quarterback to come in and maybe give you a chance for the future. This kid, Miller Moss, I did watch film on him when he was at USC. Haven't seen him since he joined Louisville. 6'2", 210, redshirt senior. My assumption is he went to Louisville to highlight more of his passing. Let's take a look at him. I was thinking about subscribing to like PFF and whatnot, but let's take a look at how he's doing. I'd like him to be taller, bigger, but I'll explain here in a second what what I saw in him. Okay, so stats wise, not good. I haven't watched enough film to be able to say like I can with Drew Aller that like what kind of systems he's in, how much help he has. But let's see how's he doing in Louisville right now. Okay, is this gonna break it down by game? Here we go. All right, so hasn't lit the world on fire. So might be kind of like a lost cause. So I'll just say what I did see of him. For me, what made me like him, yes, I have seen the accuracy, managing the game from the pocket, going through progressions. I always knew that like oh yeah sure there was a chance he could rocket up draft boards and be a first round pick. But I kind of felt like he was one more of like someone who would be like a mid round pick, maybe early third day or late second day pick. But what I liked of from him, what I saw of him was what I saw in his eyes on the sidelines when he was his team with USC went ahead, fell behind, went ahead. It was just a back and forth game, and his temperament is what I know it's silly, but that's I'm just saying, speaking my truth, that's what I saw in him. Like that's the kind of kid I want. Like it wasn't flashy, it was just I'm ready to get back to work. I've got this. You could just see it all in his eyes, and it was it was honestly something I don't really see. You don't see a lot of. That's what kind of like woke me up to him a little bit. Now, stats wise, I don't know. Maybe things have gone awry. Maybe that was just maybe he's got it behind the eyes, but nothing else. Maybe in time, I don't know if I'll really be looking at quarterbacks to be honest with you. Like we'll have to see if Bryce is crapping out, then I probably will start really looking at him just so that I can feel comfortable that I know, or at least I'm comfortable in what I'm talking about, and that I hope more would be listening as well. But that's it, man. I don't know. I thought this would be fun. I like podcasts where multiple people are involved, not just one person or two people stating their opinions. So I wanted to start something that maybe in time other people can kind of chime in with their thoughts and kind of like do like a status of the state of the franchise, who they think played well. Maybe in time go through PFF scores or some kind of baseline to and website that where professionals are kind of looking at players and just talking about that. But with the more of a mindset of not just necessarily fan bitching or cheering, but more of like, hey, like kind of like a couch GM type of thing, type of discussion or back and forth. So if it's something you're interested in, leave leave your comments and or leave a comment, and then if I'll share this with a couple people, and if they think it's cool, maybe I'll create like a social media or something to kind of like just talk Panthers football about GM shit, stuff like that. I think that's fun. I like that more than like coach speak. But I think that's it. Yeah. I think that's who I'm going to be looking at. Like the players that people talk about and experts talk about. When I'm watching these YouTube channels and when they're ranking like the top players at each position that they think will be in the draft, I'm going to be focused on offensive line, outside and inside linebackers, um, and I'll probably be listening to anytime I hear the phrase nose tackle. I'll be paying attention, but I think going into the draft, it sounds silly. We're 2-3 right now, but this is the kind of stuff I like doing on Madden. So why not do it in real life? I'm thinking that like yeah, we need to. We definitely could use help. Inside backer, another edge rusher, second day edge rusher, um, and offensive line help, man. I think we need some guys to come in and be a backup, maybe develop for the future. And who knows, maybe even take someone's starting spot if we need either the cap space or if the performance declines a little bit, someone like Taylor Moton. I mean, I know that's a tough pill to swallow if we were to get some kind of rookie, even if he's like a second day or third day guy, and he's looking better than the veteran Taylor Moton. I don't know. Maybe tomorrow we'll see that Taylor Moton is back to being him again. But I've seen him get embarrassed more times than ever before. It's kind of concerning right now. I don't know if anyone else has noticed that. Anyway, I'll end it here. Hopefully the whole volume and everything. I'll have to check it out, but keep pounding, guys. Hopefully we beat the Cowboys tomorrow.